It's the 3rd of August 2022. You're very welcome to Good Morning Uganda Extra with me, Sharon Chondisha. I hope you're having a lovely day and you've kickstarted the day with so much energy to make sure that you accomplish whatever you put your hands to. Today in studio, Uganda has made some milestones in fighting poverty, inequality, amongst so many issues that disturb or are standing in the way of Ugandans being successful or even them enjoying the country. Now, the government has put in place laws, has put in place commissions, has put in place bodies to make this a reality, that we move from inequality, we move from poverty, we step into a middle income country, that we have so many things changing for the betterment or for Ugandans to live a better life. Amongst those commissions is Equal Opportunities Commission, which was incorporated into the state's constitutional obligation to eliminate discrimination and inequalities. But the question is, has anything changed? Is the change evident actually? Can we see it? Is it tangible? Can we touch it? And today with me in studio is Mr. Joel Cox Ojuko, the Vice Chairperson, Equal Opportunities Commission, to explain to us and for us to understand a little bit more about Equal Opportunities Commission and to see if they've actually achieved the things that they're talking about, or have they helped out, and can we see that whatever they are mandated to do, they've been able to do. A very good morning.
Thank you, Sharon.
How are you, Mr. Ojuko?
Thank you very much, and thank you, viewers.
Yes. Equal Opportunities Commission. Where does that come from?
Equal Opportunities Commission is a constitutional body set up under Article 32 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda of 1995. It was operationalized, however, by an Act of Parliament known as the Equal Opportunities Commission Act in 2007 to give effect to the constitutional mandate of eliminating all forms of discrimination and marginalization against individuals and groups of people, and also to give affirmative action to those who are marginalized for historical and other reasons.
It sounds like it's such a big dream. Is that attainable or achievable?
It is. Yeah, I know it is a very big mandate. Nonetheless, a lot is being done by the Commission to ensure that we realize this dream that you're talking about. As you know, the issue of equality touches each and every one of us. And so it is pertinent that we work around the clock as a commission to ensure that equality is enjoyed by all citizens of this country. I know it is an uphill task, it's a difficult road, but nonetheless we are up to the task as a commission to do all we can to ensure all of you and me, must enjoy these rights.
Okay. In the 1990s, when it was, coming to mind, and we need a commission that helps out on some of the issues involving, for example, poverty, inequality, and so many others. For you, in the 1990s, what were some of the emerging issues from the public making it relevant for the formation of the commission?
Prior to the promulgation of the 1995 Constitution, of course, there was constitutional review process that took place, and the respondents were asked questions, and a lot came out in that process, which exposed the issue of discrimination and inequalities among the citizens. And so it became pertinent that it was a constitutional issue that must be embedded in the Constitution itself, so that then it becomes an issue to be addressed in a very unique way. And so, owing to this, Article 32 of the Constitution, therefore, and then came to establish what we now call the Equal Opportunities Commission. So it was as a result of a widespread consultation, and where issues of discrimination were disposed by the grassroots, by the population out there. And so it became an issue of concern that had to be addressed constitutionally, and also later by the Act of Parliament known as the Equal Opportunities Commission Act.
Now, before COVID-19, so many organizations or commissions or people were trying to make sure that things change for Ugandans. But with COVID-19, there's sort of been a setback. What's the story with EOC?
The COVID-19, of course, has been a challenge generally. In many aspects, it has affected all segments of society. But all the same, the issue of equality, the issue of equal opportunities must remain always constant, despite all these challenges. And so, how has equal opportunities then achieved this? We have continued to have our normal tribunal processes to address complaints that are brought to us by either groups of people or individuals where discrimination has been suffered by these individuals. We have held tribunal processes, we have carried out investigations, we have had some of these complaints, some of which we have resolved through mediation, because ours is really social harmony. We want to establish social harmony among the citizens of this country. Ours is not the type of justice system where, you know, one is fighting the other. Ours is to stabilize harmony among them. And so we do a lot of mediation. Where it fails, we go through the normal tribunal processes, we hear these complaints, and then at the end of it, we make decisions that will affect the parties one way or the other. I mean, where you have discriminated, and then definitely we shall pass a decision that will be commensurate with what you have done. In other words, where, for example, in employment, you discriminate against Sharon because she's a woman, and then we shall make a decision that will definitely redress the imbalance that has been created, so that there's no furtherance of discrimination any further.
Okay, maybe I'll just take you a little bit backwards. What are you mandated to do as EOC? Just a little bit more about that, because you're talking about tribunal, you're talking about being mediators. What is your mandate, you know?
Our mandate, as I pointed out earlier, Sharon, is to eliminate all forms of discrimination based on religion, based on sex, based on political affiliations, on tribe, and, you know, all those other extraneous considerations. Okay? I mean, you're not going to treat me differently because I belong to a certain religion. We all must enjoy the same rights equally. Under Article 21 of the Constitution, we are all subject of the law in an equal way. So equality must be enjoyed by all of us. Rights must be enjoyed by all citizens without discrimination of whatever nature. And that is where the Equal Opportunities Commission, as a commission, comes in to equalize opportunities for all citizens of this country.
Okay.
And where there's a breach, that's where we come in to institute the tribunal process to iron out these breaches.
On average, how many cases have you worked on, or how many issues have you worked on since you commenced as Equal Opportunities Commission?
We have so far handled over 2,000 cases,
That's since
2,000 complaints since the establishment of the commission in 2010. And we are still receiving more complaints, which we are continuing to handle. As I said, through mediation or through the normal tribunal processes.
Okay. And what are some of the issues that have been standing out? You talked about 2,000 cases. What are some of the, what are the recurring cases? Of course, and you sort of explained, you know, about religion, and we were trying to create the same level ground for all Ugandans because they all have the same rights. But what are some of the issues that have stood out and they sort of seem like they're recurring in those 2,000 cases?
Oh, well, there are various. But what stands out mostly is discrimination in employment. Many complaints have been brought before us arising from employment, where, for example, there are salary discrepancies simply because you are a woman, you are paid less than me, who is a man, and yet we are doing the same work. Same work, same job, but different salary structures.
Would it maybe be about the lack of not knowing how to negotiate between men and women at workplaces? Is it really that it's happening because it's a woman and man, or is it really negotiations?
No, I don't think it is the power of negotiation as such. It is just outright discrimination and maybe undermining on the basis of sex, discriminating on the basis of sex. That perhaps this is a woman and therefore her output is not as much as that of a man. And yet at the end of the day, when you measure, you realize actually what you're doing is the same and your output is the same. And so why should you be paid less and I'm paid more simply because I'm a man? It doesn't make any sense at all. That is where the element of discrimination comes in. And that is what we have to streamline.
What have you exactly streamlined? What have been some of the solutions or ways that things that you've put out there to make sure that this does not happen, or at least is changing in employment circles?
Yeah, as I said, in our tribunal processes, we make decisions and actually make orders. We make orders that are binding on the parties. So when we make these orders, then we point out that please rationalize the salary structures because of reasons A, B, C, D. All right, so we make these orders which are binding. They are as good as any other orders given by the ordinary courts of law. So they're binding, or in the alternative, we can still make report, or we write to offending institution that please take action this and that to redress this imbalance without necessarily even going through the process of a tribunal. We will advise you. We can order and make recommendations that please streamline your policies. Your policies are not compliant with equal opportunities. They are offensive to equal opportunities, to equity generally. Consider the issues of gender and ensure that there is gender parity in your employment. And so we keep on advising. We may either advise, we may give reports, or we may pass decisions in our tribunal processes, which will bind you.
And okay, one of the other things that you talked about in the introduction was affirmative action. And now it's one of those things that you're using as Equal Opportunities Commission to make sure that the ground is leveled for every Ugandan to play. Some little details about that, please.
Oh yeah, affirmative action is really taking in instances where there are cases of marginalization, obvious cases of marginalization, where, for example, women are treated differently, or a certain group of people, for example, the ethnic minorities in some parts of Uganda, the Batwa, for example, in the Rwenzoris, and part of Kigezi, I think, the Ikitamoja. These are ethnic minorities that have been marginalized over time. And so affirmative action has to be taken in their favor to bring them to the same level like you and me, who are not belonging to the ethnic minorities. We have been accessing social services like education, health services. We have also accessed government programs under different auspices in different districts. Now, we must take deliberate action. We must make deliberate policies to favor this group so that they too can access education, they can access health services and other government programs. For example, the PDM, which is now in play. How will such groups, are we really making the ground even for all, including those ethnic minorities, including special groups like women, older persons, the girl child, the youth? Are they all exposed to these programs of government? If not, then there must be affirmative action so that we ensure everybody has got access to these programs and services offered by government. More recently, there has been amendment to the PPDA Act, public procurement. So affirmative action has been taken in the area of public procurement so that specifically certain interest groups like women associations, companies run by women, by youth, by disabled persons, they are able to access public procurement because of that affirmative action taken by way of amending that law, specifically Section 15B of the PPD Act requires that a certain portion of public procurement must go to these groups. In this way, affirmative action will then become effective, then they will be brought on board just like the other people who have been accessing public procurement before, and yet others had otherwise been marginalized.
And how much power does the Commission have?
Pardon?
How much power does the Commission have? You've talked about how you can have tribunals write to organizations and so many other things. So how much power does the Commission have to actually get into all of this?
The Equal Opportunities Commission Act actually is empowered under Section 15 of the EOC Act. There are many powers there under. For example, the Commission could summon any person to appear before it and answer certain questions with respect to a complaint that has been filed or with respect to any matter that touches equal opportunities, discrimination, or marginalization. We have a long range of powers that we can exercise to invite anybody to appear before us, to ask anybody to produce documents that we may need to look at for purposes of redressing certain imbalances and for purposes of compliance with equal opportunities. In other words, what we ensure as we exercise our powers is really to ensure that government bodies, all right, departments, ministries, agencies, even private enterprises and cultural institutions are compliant with equal opportunities and they're compliant with gender and equity issues in all their programs and activities.
Okay. Now, you talked about salary disparities in the public sector, and this has been a hot topic, I think, last week actually, because in the news it was said that there might be a delay in the payments for public servants and all. When we talk about something like that, what are some of the recommendations? Because you talk about how you actually also set recommendations, and some have been used by the government, but what are some of the recommendations picked by the government and were implemented to make sure that the salary disparities is an issue that is addressed? Yeah,
the Equal Opportunities Commission carried out a study on salary discrepancies some 5 years ago. We made a report which was launched actually by the then Minister of Public Service. Now, we made several recommendations therein, and of course these things take time to implement, and if there is any implementation going on now, I could as well say it is as a result partly on the recommendations that we made. Of course, discrepancy in itself in these salaries is a form of discrimination. If our output is the same, if we are offering the same services, why would there be disparity? Unless there's a good reason that he should earn more than me. If we are offering the same services, the same output, then ordinarily same work, same pay, equal pay. Unless, as I said, there is a good reason for you to earn more, maybe because of some other input that you're making, which is a little more than mine. But generally, we look deep into this, we find out the reasons why there are discrepancies, and we make recommendations, as I said, of course, to government or any other institution where we think that that is not fair play. We make recommendations which, in most cases, they prop into and finally adopt for purposes of equalizing opportunities for all.
What are some of the, yes, you make recommendations, but what are some that you've seen implemented? For example, there's a meme, I don't know if you see these memes moving around, but there's one where there's a man who is still short and never grows, but then the salary is also the same, but then they have growing costs when it comes to home, inflation, everything, but the salary is just the same. And I think you said you did a study 5 years ago. So I'm wondering, what are some of those recommendations that you've seen implemented when it comes to salary disparities?
Well, as I said, these things take time. Of course, they also depend on the resource envelope. They depend on the planning process of government as well. We could make recommendations, but they will not necessarily be implemented upon today or tomorrow. Mm-hmm. They take time. You need money, you need revenue, you need to swell the envelope in order that you can run it through all the beneficiaries and so forth. So it's fairly complicated. Ministry of Finance is there, Ministry of Public Service is there, and the MDAs themselves are also there. So it is a whole range of issues to be discussed in a very sober way and in a very patient way, taking into account that, of course, there is the global economic recession, there is this, there is that. So we have to take it easy as government works out a final solution.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Commission also reviewed a number of policies, bills and laws, for instance, the constitutional amendment, but there was also a time where you advocated for actually a mental health bill in 2014 and the National Biotechnology and Safe Bill. I want to talk about the mental health bill in 2014, why you thought that was important to sort of push in workplaces.
The mental bill, of course, I don't know, mental health as such is again another very unique area. That is becoming more and more prominent. When you look around, there are many mental health related challenges, and so this bill must be compliant with the people, with what really people are suffering from now. What are the causes of these mental problems? Where do you find them? Where do you identify them? Now, the victims of all these are spread throughout the country. Now, if we are coming up with laws, these laws should be able to address the challenges of the girl child, the boy child, should address the challenges of the older persons as well under the same category, women, and so forth. So it must be holistic in nature. This bill, the law must address, it must be compliant with equal opportunities again. So that if there are any services to be given in this regard, it should be given to all these different groups that I have mentioned. So the law must be such that it is comprehensive enough to cover women, men, children, boys, girls, so that they are consequently able to access services in this area, so that mental health is addressed, as I said, comprehensively for the benefit of all the victims.
A few months ago, there was a headline, I think in New Vision, where New Vision or Daily Monitor, one of those, that stated that about so many millions of Ugandans are suffering from mental health. Does that mean, if this was in 2014, does that mean that it's working? or are there certain things that we need to change?
I really cannot say it is working or it's not working. It is something that we have to consult the Minister of Health about. We haven't got any report as yet about that, or any complaint brought before us arising from
So
this
you wait for reports.
Pardon me?
You wait for reports.
Yeah, wait for a report, yes. Or maybe a complaint. And then we
You can't go get one?
As a result of that, we can, on our own. If we realize that there is something wrong, there is something that needs our research,
So you
and then proactively, we can go into the field to find out what exactly the problem is. But as of now, nothing has popped up to prompt our research into this.
Okay. Oh wow, okay. Now the Commission also developed gender and equity planning and budgeting tools. And it was, it is one of those things that was actually a process to address G&E concerns in the national budget arising. Why was it important to be a part of the national budget?
Oh, it is, yeah. In 2015, the Public Management Act was enacted in 2015 with provisions of mainstreaming gender and equity in all the plans and budgets of government entities. Okay? Meaning, as departments or ministries or agencies or local governments plan for the provision of services to their people, they must mainstream gender and equity. In other words, women must be catered for, men must be catered for, older persons must be catered for, the disabled persons must equally be included in the plans of government, so that all citizens across the board are able to access services, to enjoy programs, and generally to enjoy their rights under the law. All of them, regardless of whether you're disabled, regardless whether you're an older person, regardless of whether you're a woman, you're a girl child, or a boy. All must be included in the plans of government. And the budget, therefore, of government must also reflect gender and equity.
Now, relatedly, the Commission also has carried out a lot of research on Karamoja. Why Karamoja? And what exactly about Karamoja that you found so fascinating to sort of get to understand them or do a little bit of more research on them?
Well, you appreciate Karamoja is equally part of this country. And Karamoja has randomly suffered, disasters as a result of climatic conditions. Climate change has affected it so much. Of late, as you know, their livelihoods have been disturbed so much. They have no crops, they have no food. The sun heat is so much. People are dying as a result of starvation. And this inevitably required some urgent intervention by government, which I'm glad was done. These fellows were being pushed to the wall. They were on the margin. They were no longer living a respectable life. They could not even tell that tomorrow they are going to live. So there had to be deliberate intervention by government, which they did. The Prime Minister was there.
Food relief, you mean?
Pardon?
The food relief?
A lot of food relief has been sent, of course, alongside other development partners, like World Food Program. They have provided food. So Karamoja, to that extent, has been, with special needs. And that's why I think all attention has been taken there, so that they live a fairly dignified, respectable life like you and me. They also have got a right to life, like all of us. And this is a constitutional issue. Now, this right, where possible, government must always come in to ensure that it is realized. And not only government, but it is the duty of every citizen to ensure that, you know, you are each other's keeper.
Well,
you must be sympathetic to my plight. I should be sympathetic to yours. And that is why all our attention now has been turned to Karamoja to ensure that we bring them to a fairly reasonable level of life.
Okay, food relief, beautiful, development partners coming in to help, amazing. But what's then going to happen if it's sort of a recurring issue and every time we have to offer? When you did the research, what were some of the things that you found out that should be able to help Karamoja, and not just when it's seasonal or when a tragic incident has sort of happened?
Well, as I said, you know, these are mainly arising from factors of climate change. Climate change. And of course, there has been efforts to encourage people on that side to adopt different methods of agriculture, like introducing irrigation, because rain is very scarce. There must be irrigation, and also introducing new resistant crops. You know, crops that are really resistant to weather, to the sun, and all that. So some of these initiatives are being undertaken. You know, new breeds are being introduced, including livestock. And of course, there is veterinary care, support, and advice. Agriculturists are there. Extension workers are also there. Government is coming very heavily to support in those areas. So we believe that in the short run, other things held constant, Karamoja should also be able to stabilize if they follow the advice that is being given by by government, so that they too can then begin to lead a reasonable life. They can reap. They will be able to sustain their livelihoods. They will not be victims of the climate change, of course, which has affected many parts of the region. You have seen how animals perished in Somalia, Ethiopia, and other places. So in the same way, deliberate efforts are being made by government to ensure that these livelihoods are sustainable through scientific interventions and other factors that are coming in.
Okay, and also we've just, after Karamoja, because it was in the news for quite some time, we now, the latest incident around Mount Elgon, or even on the, in Bali, which has been so tragic, because we lost about 27 people, and people
29 by yesterday.
Oh, okay, and thank you for the update. And property, crops, people are displaced. We have about 9,000 people displaced from their homes. And this is sort of an area that we sort of know that when it starts to rain, these are some of the things that might happen. But as equal opportunities, I understand, because if you've been to Karamoja, definitely you're doing research or understanding and assessing the situation and what keeps on happening. What has Equal Opportunities Commission done for Elgon, for the Mbale area, or what is it planning to do? Or how is it even getting on board, and what exactly do they want to do?
Well, as I said, ours is relative to rationalize opportunities for all, to ensure that there are equal opportunities for all citizens of this country. And now, to that effect, it is unfortunate that, again, the Elgon region has had to suffer the way they have done. These floods have been very ravaging, lives have been lost, properties destroyed, and so on. So, as a commission, we have dispatched a team to the disaster area. They are trying to assess the extent of the damage, the extent of the marginalization, because these fellows now are on the margin. They have been marginalized. They have no food. They have no homes. They have no livelihoods. So we are assessing the extent of the marginalization and making recommendations on how best further interventions can be made. I am aware that interventions already have been made by the Office of the Prime Minister. Food relief has been sent there, and other relief items have been sent to the victims.
What is that? Because around Bale, we clearly know that because of it being a mountainous area and all, these issues keep on recurring. What haven't we learned from the past experiences that still food relief and assessing the situation after things have happened are some of the things that we tend to do, of course to help, because now it's a crisis, like you said, people are at the margin. But then what are some of those recommendations or the things that should have lasting solutions to these problems?
Yeah, I think as has been advised even by His Excellency the President himself, the people living high up in the mountains, in those high-risk areas, should be relocated to safer places on the lowlands, or even completely away from the region. For example, a few years ago, some victims of floods in the Elgon area were relocated to Bunyoro, to Kiriadongo district, where they were given land, I think, to cultivate. They settled somehow. And others were advised to come even lower down if they cannot leave their ancestral area, but at least to leave the very risky places. So I think the final solution will be in relocating to safer places that that can be proved really to be safe. There are people within the Elgon area who have been there for centuries and have never suffered from those floods and other disasters. So why not integrate them into this same society, for example? Why not seek the advice the government is giving that please go to safer places so that you are safe, so that you do not suffer from the floods and so on. So I think, to answer your question precisely, victims should relocate to safe places.
Any last remarks as Vice Chairperson, ELC?
Thank you very much, Sharon, for this opportunity. You know, there is a lot to talk about equality, about gender and equity. But I want to thank you so much for inviting us here to share our ideas. And my final remark would be to appeal to our people out there that the Equal Opportunities Commission is there to entertain your complaints based on discrimination, marginalization. If you are suffering any unequal treatment wherever, it could even be domestic with your husband, bring forth, and we streamline that. We handle it, we advise. Discrimination is unlawful. Discrimination is unconstitutional. It is something that you will suffer if you do not eradicate it. That's why we are there to eradicate it and ensure that everybody enjoys his or her rights equally with all the rest of the citizens. Our offices are located in Bugolobi, Plot 7, Luthuli Close, but the legal department of the commission is based right here, about 100 meters away from the studio at Kingdom Kampala building, where the former Shimoni Primary School was. Just come to the first floor. We will be ready to receive you and discuss issues of discrimination, and wherever you want us to make interventions will be available. But we also have a toll-free line for those who may wish to call. It is 0800 100 440. That is the toll-free line. And for those who can access email, we are at info@eoc.go.ug.
Okay.
You will be welcome anytime. Our services are free. We don't charge any fees. Our tribunals are equally free. We do not charge for the services that we offer. So you're most welcome. Please come to EOC to redress the imbalances that you may be suffering.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joel Cox Ojuko. That was the Vice Chairperson, Equal Opportunities Commission. Please don't suffer alone. There's so much help out there, and Equal Opportunities Commission is one of those. They have a toll-free number. You can do your research. If you didn't catch the venue or where you can find them, make sure you get help because it is out there. Thank you so much for watching. Let's take a short break.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.